Thank you to everyone who supports my content, and a special thank you to my patrons and Whipped Wizard. If you're interested, links to both my Patreon and Whipped Wizard can be found in the description below. Thank you for watching. Hey, what's up everyone? I wanted to go over Sand Sketch Plan just because I know it can be a pretty daunting card for a lot of Rhinar players. A lot of people feel like there's a heavy lean on RNG, that it's not a reliable card, that it's just too difficult of a tutor to really properly play. And I wanted to kind of give my perspective and my thought process for when I use the card, because I actually do find it very reliable. I think it's very flexible, and I think you can actually plan around it pretty easily. So I'm just going to run through my method for when I go to tutor with the card. So for anyone who's not familiar, it's just a 0 cost blue non-attack action, the Rhinar specialization, and it's a tutor. If you come from Magic, it's Gamble, the red 1 cost tutor, where you're going to search your deck for a card, put it in your hand. It's not revealed to your opponent, but then you'll discard a random card. But in line with Brute, if it's a card with power 6 or more, you'll gain 2 action points on top of the Intimidate trigger from Rhinar. So it's obviously very relevant in a deck like Rhinar. There's all sorts of stuff you can do with action points in Rhinar. So the way I like to use a card is we're just going to make it hard, right? We're going to say it's in our hand. We're going to say we have to use it. No arsenal setup. We're going to draw 3 cards. So that's pretty interesting. I think the obvious answer is you would pitch it as a blue, and then you would go off on a Blood Rush Bellow turn. But let's say we don't have a Blood Rush Bellow, right? Let's say we want to use it for its actual tutor effect. This is pretty good here, right? It's actually pretty complex because of Barraging Beatdown, and it makes our choices a little bit more difficult, right? So let's just take it at face value. This is how I like to use it. I like to tutor with it, and then I like to think about what card do I want here? What would push this over the top to be a very playable and that abuses maybe the effect from Sand Sketch Plan? And secondly, what happens if I lose a card that I want to get? And what happens if I lose any other card in my hand? So looking at this, we obviously need resources. We have cards that cost 2, but we have 2 reds and a yellow. So my first thought is getting a blue Wrecker Romp. If we lose it, we don't lose our turn. We actually get the action points, although our hand won't be super playable, but we will trigger Rhinar's ability. So that's my first thought. So let's say we get that card, right? What happens if we lose it? So now we have to think about this card. We have to think about Sand Sketch Plan as a card where it's giving us 4 possible 3-card hands, and you want to find the card to tutor for that makes it the least awkward. Basically, if you either lose it or if you get it. So what I mean by that is let's just do it's very easy in Tabletop Simulator. What happens if we lose that? What if that's the card we lose? Well, it looks like we could play Swing Big and maybe Arsenal Pack Hunt, or we could play Pack Hunt, Arsenal Swing Big. What happens if we lose Pack Hunt though? Well, it looks like we could play Swing Big and then maybe Arsenal Barraging Beatdown. We could also play the Barraging Beatdown. We already have 1 Intimidate trigger, puts our opponent down another card. And we could play Swing Big. If we lose Swing Big, it's actually looking really good for us because we can Barraging Beatdown into Pack Hunt. And that's a triple Intimidate, so it pretty much guarantees Barraging Beatdown's ability, unless our opponent has a defense reaction. So that's another solid option. What happens if we lose Barraging Beatdown? Weirdly enough, we actually lose our whole turn. It ends because it wasn't a power 6, so we don't gain any action points at all. And we used our action point to play Sand Sketch Plan, so our turn's actually done. So what does that now mean for this hand? Well, what it means is there's also a consideration now to playing Barraging Beatdown before you even Sand Sketch Plan. And now, your options actually got easier. But also more complex, because what happens if you lose Wrecker Romp? Well, now your entire hand is now not playable. You can maybe pitch these in weapon. You could pitch them to a claw or to a club, but it's really bad. What happens if you lose Pack Hunt? Well, this is fine. You have 2 Intimidate triggers. You come in with Swing Big. But what happens if you lose that? Well, that's really solid. We get the 3 Intimidates we talked about before. But what is worth noting is that now there's no option where we just blank on our whole turn. There was an option, Beast Within or Barraging Beatdown was in our hand. We could lose it and then lose our whole turn. So is there anything else that we would maybe want to get that would change any of this? Probably not, right? It's probably the best option considering that we need the resources. There's not really much else we could get that seems really solid. So I would say we probably solved this hand. And we could play it out, see how it goes, even though we already know all 3 possible combinations. Okay. So that seemed like the best hand there, right? So we get a triple intimidate from our opponent. Now this comes in for 9. That was just one example, and that's pretty much how I play the card. So hopefully that's helpful to anyone who has trouble with it. So we can go one more time. All right. That's pretty interesting. You get sand sketch plan, and now you have a few different options. You could actually get another beast with it. You already have one in your hand, so what happens if we get one and we lose it? Well, we get to go dig for a new 6 cost, maybe something we could play. And then we can pitch these 2 into Massacre, or maybe the new 6 cost, and we can play Pack Hunt into Massacre, or maybe one of these into a weapon attack. If we lose Massacre, well, it looks like we can Pack Hunt into a weapon. If we lose Pack Hunt, it looks like we can Massacre, although that one's probably the weakest line. If we lose the other beast within, then, you know, we're pretty set up. There's also, of course, a consideration. Maybe like a blue Wrecker Rump. We lose that, Pack Hunt's playable. We Arsenal Massacre, or we pitch both to play Massacre. If you lose Massacre, you can go Pack Hunt into a weapon. If you lose Pack Hunt, you can go Massacre into a weapon, pitching the yellow. And if you lose Beast Within, you have a new target, and there's a possibility you might really get to explode by playing Massacre and Pack Hunt in the same turn. So I really like that line. I also like the line of just doubling down when there's Beast Within already in your hand and you can go get a second one. It increases your odds of hitting it, right? Because now there's a 50% chance that you'll actually get to dig for a new card. Maybe let's try that, and we can see how the blue Wrecker Romp line would have played out. So you go for it, you lost Massacre. It's somewhat playable now, right? You can Pack Hunt, and then you could club, or you could claw if you wanted. And just to see how it would have played out another way. And you lose Beast Within, you banish the top card. It's a blue Wrecker Romp. That was actually not planned because the other one was put aside there. But you know, now you got the absolute most insane hand where you can pitch a yellow, you could Pack Hunt, and then you get to Massacre afterwards, and that's what already double intimidate because Sand Sketch Plan intimidated, Massacre intimidate, so triple intimidate, you do 16 damage. Maybe it's not Wrecker Romp, right? What would have been the next one? That one's interesting now, right? Maybe rip that off the top, then all of a sudden now you could pitch and you could Savage Feast, discarding one of these, drawing a new card. Now you have some new and fun, exciting lines. There's all sorts of stuff you can do, right? Or maybe, you know, your hand was going to be the blue Wrecker Romp. Oops, sorry. And the Beast Within is not what you tutored for. Now, you lost a Beast Within. You get a Savage Feast. Now you have this whole hand to work with, where you could Massacre, and then maybe play something else, or you can pitch this and Savage Feast. So yeah, I'm sure there's no need to go through all these lines, but it's just one way of thinking about it, right? So that's just how I tend to think about Sand Sketch Plan when I'm using it. I just like to evaluate all the possible combinations of hands that are left over after you tutor. It seems really complicated. I think you'll get the hang of it if you just kind of practice a little bit. Maybe just like take your deck and just run through it on your desk, or pull it up in TTS and just try it. Although I will say a lot of times it is pretty easy. Normally you're just trying to find like a bigger attack, or you're trying to find something like a blue Wrecker Romp to pitch to it. There are very rare cases where there's a specific card you want. I remember one time I got lethal by finding a Massacre just because I needed the 10 with the Intimidate. Or maybe you want to get card advantage from Savage Feast, or maybe you want to play 2 Command and Conquerors, some crazy stuff like that. Or you need an Alpha Rampage to win the game. There's all sorts of niche cases. You'll just have to learn to evaluate those, but overall, that's just how I tend to use a card. I just think about all the possible combinations of hands that are left over. Obviously, it gets more complex and more complicated when it's Arsenal, then you have a 4-card hand, because now That's what, 5 different possible combinations. So definitely not easy, but it's pretty manageable. I think the Tutor is actually really cool in terms of design and what it allows the deck to do. So hope the video was helpful. Let me know what other sort of guides you want. If there's any other specific cards in either Rhino or Dash that you would like to see me break down some more. So yeah, thank you.